What's up, Blaze Virtual Summit attendees? Man, today has felt so good. The DJs have been killing it, the speakers have been killing it, and right now we have a very sobering conversation with two beautiful and brilliant Black women. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, right? But to level set, I want to say that this is going to be one of the most challenging and painful discussions, right? That is not only had at this summit, but that is taking place around the world today. This is not being talked about enough because it's so painful, because it's so fragile, right? And because there are so many folk to blame, okay? But I'm gonna let the experts in the house unpack this thing called Black maternal mortality rates, okay? So ladies, I'm gonna kick it to you, and what I would like for you to share at the top of this conversation is, what your path has been today, right? What that journey has looked like and how it led you to being an advocate, an activist, right? And a servant, right? In the maternal space for Black women. Let's start with you, Tiffany.
Thank you. And I love that you say servant because it is a duty of servitude, but I came into this role because, for one, my grandmother was an OBGYN. And so I got a lot of exposure at a young age to birth, and that was in Dominican Republic. So I got to see her operate and work. And then I transitioned from that to getting pregnant at 16 and having a baby and navigating everything and understanding that nobody saw me as a parent. So it was my responsibility, if I was going to do this well, to educate myself. So this was times of the library. So I taught myself how to breastfeed and how to take care of my child and all these things. And then I just kept having kids. And my first experience was traumatic because of how I was treated, not because of the labor. I knew then that I would have a lot of kids because it was pretty easy for me. And so I went on to have kids, and the next kid, I was 19, and I was I'm not on Medicaid, and I got my own insurance, and my treatment is still so shitty, right? And then I was married, and I had my next kid, and then I had my next kid, and I was okay, listen, if I just went along with the okie doke and just did everything that they suggested, then I would be in a much different situation. And so with my last baby, I decided to have a home birth, and I was looking for a home birth midwife that I could identify with, that I didn't have to subject myself to their micro and macro aggressions and their biases that can impact my healthcare. And I couldn't find anybody, right? And so I was well, if there's nobody, I'm already in the birth working field, at this point. I'm then I have to be the person that brings it. And so I later became the first Black CPM in my city. And I'm the only one licensed right now in Columbia. And we're working on getting Candace licensed. So that's kind of how I got into it. Just personal experience and looking at what I liked in my care and how it impacted my care. And if I wasn't more self-sufficient, how that could have looked very different for me and my children.
Ashe. I always love when people use their own pain and their real challenges to produce solutions, because a lot of folk just fake it for so long and nothing gets solved for anybody. So I think that's so dope. Tiffany, could you tell folks where you're based and what the name of your business is?
Yeah, so I'm based in Soda City, which is Columbia, South Carolina, and my business is called De La Flor Midwifery. It's named after some of my ancestors, my grandmothers, and my great-grandmother and my mother. So there's a lot of people named Flor in my family, which means flower. And so my practice literally means of the flower, because I believe the womb blooms and then it closes down, but it's never dead, and it just has life cycle. So I thought it was a beautiful way to honor those that came before me while remembering there's more work to be done ahead.
Ashe, I love that. I'm biased towards Columbia because I'm from the Met as well. So it's dope to see you pioneering things there and blazing trails. You're gonna help millions to come. So that's super dope. Candace, let's go to you. What's your story? What has been your path to get here? And how did that lead to this intersection with Black maternal everything? So I'm sure you do a lot of things in this space.
Absolutely. So what brought me into birth work was my own birth. Honestly, I was 23 years old and no pre-existing conditions. No conditions developed during my pregnancy. And my OBGYN came to my last appointment at 40 weeks, and she was dressed in her surgical scrubs. And she basically ordered me to have a C-section, and she threatened me, and her words still haunt me to this day. What she said to me was that if I didn't agree, then both myself and my baby could die. And I'm like, I've carried this baby this long. And then my mom hearing those fear-mongering words. 2 of her 3 births were C-sections. My brother was natural. My sister was an emergency C-section, and mine was a planned C-section. And so her being indoctrinated by the system and believing, a C-section saved her life, she's like, oh, you should do it because a planned C-section is way easier than if you labor and it turns into an emergency. And so I was afraid. And I signed my life away, like literally felt my soul leave my body laying on that table in the OR. And I quickly learned as I was healing from that my C-section was completely unnecessary. And once I learned what all was stolen from me, what all I did not get to experience, I didn't know what a contraction felt like. I didn't know anything. And I knew that something was missing. I knew that it was taken from me. And so, as I healed, I learned. And the only thing I prepared for was breastfeeding. So our mutual friend, Raven, she added me to a Facebook group, and I studied breastfeeding my whole pregnancy. So I was prepared to breastfeed. And that's where the Melanin Mama was birthed, and actually how Tiffany and I became friends. We met in the Melanin Mama years ago. And so then it's been my duty to help just teach people things they don't know, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I didn't know all the things that happened to me in the hospital. So then I just started spreading the gospel, and then I learned about it. And as I help moms with breastfeeding, because then I got my CLC and became a lactation consultant. And after that, I'm like, I need to do more. I'm called to do more. And so then I finally had doors open for me to begin my apprenticeship. And that alone wasn't easy. There were no Black midwives in my city. I was rejected by most of them, ignored by most of them. And then one ally gave me a chance and opened her door to me. And then Tiffany moved down to help finish my training. So I call myself a revenge midwife. I recently had my own VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after a C-section at home with my baby girl, who's now 6 months old. And it was so healing to take back what was taken from me. I have chills now because I'm still processing, how beautiful that experience was. And so when I first went to school, I thought I wanted to be a nurse. So I started off pre-nursing. As a little girl, I said I always wanted to be a pediatrician. But once I realized how much school that was, I'm like, I could be a pediatric nurse. And so I started off pre-nursing and then biology. And I'm like, this is not really aligning with me. And so then I gave early childhood education a try and psychology. And my academic advisor was like, you have enough credits. If you want to graduate, we can call this a degree. So I got my bachelor's from Coastal Carolina University in Conway, South Carolina. And I received my Bachelor of Art in Interdisciplinary Studies with a concentration in health management and family studies. A whole bunch of experience packed into a piece of paper. Later, I went on to get my CNA certification and phlebotomy certifications. And had I known the word midwife was even a word, I would have started that as soon as I graduated from high school. I didn't even know it was a thing, even though it's in my blood. My grandmother's grandmother was a midwife in Eastover, South Carolina. And once I learned the word midwife, it was set in my heart that I was going to become a midwife. And thankfully, doors opened and I almost made it happen. I'm still in progress.
So dope. This is a full circle moment for me as well, Candace, because, my first time hearing midwife was, with my grandmother, who lives in Gadsden, South Carolina, right, would talk about how, they grew up on the farm and a midwife came to birth her. And so she has 2 birthdays, one at the hospital put on the paper and one when it was actually done. Because, the midwife would just send all the papers at the same time. Mm-hmm. But, after those stories growing, literally, this is the first time I'm actually speaking to one, right? So this is so full circle and not a distant full circle, but literally I grew up in Gadsden, South Carolina. You know what I'm saying? I went to Gadsden Elementary School right next door to Eastover. My friends, right, in my class were from Eastover. So I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of our generation and the one after us that is breaking the rules and saying, what box, what rules? Like, what you mean? Because like you mentioned, this is so healing. This is so very healing. You ladies are incredible. Candace, can you please tell everyone where you're based right now and what the name of your business is?
Yes, so Columbia, South Carolina is home for me. Born and raised here, and my business currently is Palmetto Breastfeeding and Wellness, and I am the apprentice, the midwife under supervision at De La Fleur Midwifery.
Super dope. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so it's time to go there, right? And folks, I want you to allow your emotions to flow fluidly, right? Process it, right? If there's anything you want to put in the chat, put it there, right? If there are any emotions you want to hit under the screen to show, do it, right? You don't have to bottle this in. It's a safe space. It's a sacred space always, right? And our goal is to give vocabulary to the things we feel so that we can express it, right? And get it out. So ladies, just in case anyone is not familiar with the statistics, right, on Black maternal mortality, I want to level set here as well. So everyone, according to a statement released by the CDC in April of 2022, this year, a few months ago, Black women are 3 times more likely to die from a pregnancy-related cause than white women. 3 times more likely to die. Right. And the CDC gives, honestly, several causes for this. Right. But it is so important for us to tell our stories in our words. Right. And so I love to give Tiffany and Candace a moment to explain why they think these causes are. Right. So ladies, what are some of the underlying and overt causes of our high death rates during pregnancy? Candace, let's start with you, Mama.
In my opinion and experience, is Black women being ignored by their providers. We can say, I have headaches. Oh, that's a normal sign of pregnancy. But what if it's not? We can say, something doesn't feel right, or could you run this test? And they'll dismiss it as if it's nothing. I think the biggest part is just believing Black women that our signs and symptoms are real, our feelings are real, our experiences are real. And so aside from everything clinical, like we are the own masters of our own body. You guys will hear me say that throughout this summit, but we are the masters of our own body. And so when people dismiss our concerns, when they don't give us options and when they don't give us options and allow us to even explore other alternatives to be heard, to be felt, and to be seen, that alone is a huge cause for it. And also just the unnecessary interventions that happen, because almost always birth can happen naturally. Like our bodies were created to give birth. And so we go into the hospital system who are in cahoots with the insurance companies, and the doctors get paid more. The more they intervene, the more they get paid. So it's seen as if they're saving us when they're actually causing problems and then attempting to fix it. But if they don't fix it fast enough, then we are still the victims from that. And so to me, that is one of the biggest causes, really, is the unnecessary interventions, them not taking the hands-off approach, which is one of the biggest differences in midwifery care. We have the skills to do all the things, but most of the time we do nothing. My favorite births is just sitting back and watching the body do what God created it to do. So 9 times out of 10, interventions are not necessary. We were created to give birth with nothing, just to be surrounded by women. That's what the word midwife means, to be surrounded, to be with women. So yes, midwife means to be with women. And so the unnecessary interventions is a huge cause of it, just going in there and then wanting to do stuff, wanting to fix things.
Great perspective. Oh, go ahead, Tiffany. Yeah.
So I was going to say, you said 3 times more likely, but it can be up to 8 times depending on where you are located. Where you're located makes a huge difference. 3 times is a lot, but it's not even the highest. It's not even the highest occurrence. And so, in my opinion, it's a couple of things. For one, we have to understand like how colonization is still wreaking havoc in our communities, in our wombs, in our children's lives, in our education systems, in redlining in every capacity. And so what I mean by that is that colonizer Dr. Sims, the doctor and founder of gynecology and obstetrics, right? The person that has these statues built, he practiced his techniques on non-consenting Black women with no anesthesia. That is the foundation of the system. And if you consider that, then it's not far off, right? So that's why they don't ask for consent. Hey, I'm going to check you now. Hey, I'm going to start an IV now. The language that we use in healthcare is important. I don't touch a client without asking them, is it okay if I take your blood pressure? That's a blood pressure, because it's important for people to be empowered and understand that I am working for you, right? And my job is to make sure that you're safe, that you're educated, but you are responsible for making the choices for your family. That's not a job of any healthcare provider. And so overt macro and microaggressions are a big reasons why we see that. And a good example of that is just a personal experience that I had. Like, I was talking to one of my doctors before I became licensed and a midwife. I was younger in my early 20s, and I was like, hey, like, I've had a couple babies with you. Like, you always send me with Similac and Enfamil. Like, you've never talked to me about breastfeeding. Is that not standard in your care? And he was like, oh no, Black women don't breastfeed. I don't talk to them about that, right? He wasn't overtly racist. He never treated me bad, but his perspective on who I was as a woman impacted the information I had access to and what I was worthy enough of learning, right? And so that little bit of implicit bias can take your life. And ultimately, these words are beautiful: implicit bias, micro and macroaggressions. I just like to say racism. The system is operating in the way it was initiated. Until there's reform, there's not going to be a change, and we're not going to see improvement in that numbers, because even having a Black OB, you can have the same experience. And that's the part that's hard. People are like, oh, if I just get a Black OB, no, the system is broken. And because, well, it's broken for us, it's not working for us. It's functioning and profiting those who it's supposed to function and profit for. But for us, it's time for us to start taking a look at, like, okay, well, you're telling me that my baby's going to die. Like, can you give me more details on that? I'm going to get a second opinion. I'm going to consult a midwife. I'm going to seek out other things before I put my life in the hands of someone that maybe I shouldn't trust with my life.
Well, such good perspective, right? One where Candace said, believe Black women. That is a huge solve for so many things in life. Just believe us, right? Like, we do feel pain. Contrary to what the founder of gynecology said, right? Agree, could not agree more. And then, yeah, on the flip side of that, right? Like, those who are still in the system, right? Like, it doesn't mean that the Black OBGYN is liberated enough, right? Has autonomy enough, right? Is courageous enough to do what she's supposed to do to protect us. I think that's dope perspective. And, you know, I have a personal follow-up question to this, because you know, when I think about things in my field, right, the field I came from, outside of healthcare, like corporate America, I've come to the belief that you can't retrofit a system that was never designed to edify us. You just keep putting Band-Aids on it. You can't steer hundreds of thousands of people and millions of people and think that shit gonna work, right? Like, and I wasn't always that way. I was the D&I advocate, right? I spent all my days trying to convince, right, like colonizers and racist people and people who, you know, were trying to protect their privilege, right? I spent all my days trying to change their minds. But today I'm just like, yeah, we retrofit that shit for what? We got to build something fresh from the ground up that makes sense. So both of you, honestly, I'd like to start with you on this one, Tiffany. You know, do you believe that reform will really work, like be a permanent solution, or do you believe that something separate has to grow and thrive?
I absolutely do not believe that reform. It's the bare minimum, though. And like you said, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is a sham, right? We are talking to these high-level executives like, look at the data. Black people do feel pain. Look at the data. They're dying more. Like, we have believed this lie that our bodies are broken. Black women, you can't breastfeed. Black women, you can't have a baby. Black women, you're infertile. Like, there's so much propaganda around how broken our bodies are, but we're not looking at this as a result of a sick system. We're looking at it like it's our fault, right? There's nothing wrong with the Black body inadvertently. It's the environment that we are in that is causing these situations to take place. So no, I don't think that reform is going to be the solution. But I think that a lot of people are afraid to step outside of the system. Like, you know what? I'm gonna have my baby at home with or without a midwife. I really believe in autonomy that much. I support free birth. I support home birth. I support birth center birth. I support all births that are empowered and based in education and, you know, letting the parents take charge about what is going to be best for their families. And so that is the revolution, right? Like, taking back the ownership over your woman. Stop asking people for permission to do something and how to do it, something and all of that. Like, we talk about God speaking to us, and sometimes we want it to be like, hello, my daughter. No, like, it's that intuition in your stomach when you like, that does not feel right. That is like I get goosebumps. I don't feel safe anymore. Listen to that and act on that. Like, that's the only way that change is going to come, when we stop asking people for permission to honor ourselves. Nobody is ever going to give you that.
That's good. That's good. It brings me to a conversation I had last year with an OBGYN, a Black female OBGYN who went to USC with me in South Carolina. And she said, you know, after all these years of schooling and proving herself, she said that when she walks into offices, she doesn't tell them she's a doctor just to see how they're going to treat her. And it is always bad. Right. And then when they start saying crazy stuff to her and she starts using these big words, et cetera, they get very nervous because they all of a sudden realize. Right. And so, you know, what she said was, you know, obviously, if you have an OBGYN that you trust and ask, am I high risk and, you know, XYZ, but like, if they're telling you you're healthy enough to, you know, do an alternative way, like, don't think twice about it. And I thought that was huge, right? For an OBGYN to say that. So being on this side, right, talking to y'all and unpacking that side of it, I think is truly powerful. So let's dive deeper, right? You know, this stuff did not manifest overnight, right? We've alluded to this a few times, right? And a lot of it is drenched in white supremacy, right? What are some of the and if you have examples, you can give examples. I think that would help people contextualize this thing, right? Like, what are some of the intersections of, you know, the maternal experiences of Black women and white supremacy? Like, what does it look like? How does white supremacy show up in these experiences of the pregnant Black woman? Candace, we can start with you, then we'll go over to Tiffany.
White supremacy shows up particularly in my field when Black women, before Tiffany got here in Columbia 8 months ago, there was no licensed Black midwife they could choose, right? So Black women are choosing to home birth with the racist white midwives, or the ones who aren't going to advocate for them as hard, or who aren't going to honor them the same way that we do. And so they go into this care with a midwife who has no cultural connections to them, who does not desire to even unlearn some of the biases that are just natural to them. And so they go into care and then they get transferred out, or they're risked out of care, or they receive subpar care, the same way that they would care for a client who looks like them. These Black women who go into care in home birth with white midwives, they do not receive respectful treatment. And so how does white supremacy play that role? Those are the same midwives who are not training Black students, midwives. They've gatekept, they've stolen what was our natural trade. They made it inaccessible and hard to become a midwife. There's less than 500 Black midwives in the United States. Less than 500. And that's strategic. It's systemic. They made it hard, expensive, and inaccessible. And so you have all of these Black doulas out here and aspiring midwives who are looking for a door to step into this field, and they weren't there. And so I feel like that's the biggest way white supremacy plays a role in home birth, is by them gatekeeping, because it could have been plenty of Black midwives. They could have, if they all trained a Black midwife and then they train a Black midwife, then you'll have Black midwives. There were no Black midwives on purpose. And so that's why it's my biggest goal and Tiffany's biggest goal. We're going to train Black midwives. It's only 2 of us right now, but we're about to multiply before their eyes. So as far as home birth goes, white supremacy for sure, with the gatekeeping. Overall, I mean, we're the minority though in every system though. So really just the inaccessible to care that looks like you, because that does make a huge difference.
Yeah, gatekeeping is huge. Like that is such a huge example, because in every single industry we hear this term pipeline problem. There's a pipeline problem. They're not out there. They don't exist. And it's not true. It's just that you don't know any Black people because you have not hired any Black people. And none of your white managers have a responsibility or requirement to hire diverse talent before they get promoted. Why are we still promoting folks that's not bringing in diversity? Why isn't it tied to their money? Huh? Like, why isn't it tied to their livelihood? Because it's that important, right? Because folks are dying, right? I love that. And that is so real. And to that point, like even the people that don't want to admit, right, that they are biased and prejudiced, etc., right? Most companies out there still this year, 2022, still don't have Black folk in their firms and in their industries. That's a direct reflection of them, their minds, their hearts, their networks, their circles, who they care about, period. Like there's no other way to put it. So I get riled up on this stuff.
One other thing that I would like to add also is, even for the brown doctors in the healthcare systems, South Carolina requires us to have a consulting physician, right? If they're not in private practice, which we already know is privileged because they got student loans to pay back, they can't even consult with us. So the white supremacy is even on a whole corporate level, where they can't even do the work that their hearts desire to do because they're not allowed to. So the Black doctor who would be our ally for home birth, because we're all about collaborative care and midwifery care. And some doctors believe in that also, but if they're working for Prisma Health or Lexington Medical Center, they can't work with us.
Yeah. Anything to add, Tiffany?
Yeah, so I would say to make it the simplest, we can say this. When your Blackness is criminalized when you walk in the door, then it just puts you at risk for whatever, right? It's just like getting pulled over and you're like, hands on the steering wheel, it's like, get out of the car, right? It's that same energy. It's like you walk in, oh, look at this Black girl. She got to be a crackhead. She got to do drugs. We're going to randomly drug test her without her consent. We're going to, hey, if you don't vaccinate your baby, and if you don't do this, and this that I think is good, I'm going to call CPS on you. So it's like putting your foot on someone's neck, right? But using the very system to do it, right? And there's almost never ramifications. We see so many things like this with, medical kidnapping and coercion and all of that stuff. And that's all rooted in white supremacy. So it's like, hey, if you don't do the jig for me, right? If you don't make yourself seem like a respectable Black person and come in here like how I feel like you need to, you're going to be subject to what I feel like I need to do in your life. And that is just dangerous. It's dangerous. It's problematic. And it's confusing to me that, we can get CPS involved in all this stuff for somebody that gets randomly drug tested and have marijuana in their system. But you can go to the hospital and get fentanyl put in your spine. And there's, it's a legal thing. And so a lot of the things is like, make it make sense. Like, make this make sense for me, right? If we're going to drug test, let's do everybody, because I have clients from all vast backgrounds. When they come back, my Black clients are always drug tested. My white clients do not get drug tested. That is not a part of their healthcare. So if we're going to do that, let's make it universal. But if not, like, there has to be informed consent. Hey, this is standard of practice. We're going to draw these labs, X, Y, Z. Hey, this is a vaccination that we recommend. This is why we recommend it. Oh, you don't want to do it? That is your right as a parent. And so that is how white supremacy kind of shows up in that coercion and manipulation in the healthcare system.
Amazing. Amazing that we can give real examples to affirm the people who thought it was just them, right? Amazing. I have not had a child yet, and my first time hearing about a traumatic birthing experience was in 2021. That's wild, right? I'm 32, right? And that's how much this is not talked about. It was my close friend who told me what happened on that operating table and how they were taking pictures of her body without telling her why, and saying, "Do you see this?" Like the scariest experience, right? The scariest experience. She just had a baby. No reference to that. No reference to how anything, like she was in the zoo. And I never ever heard that story, ever heard anything like it, because everybody felt like you got to be a happy mother that talks about the sunshine and so I appreciate y'all. I know so many other people do, because y'all are telling our stories, man, and giving us vocabulary, right, on what we want instead. Beautiful. So our wombs, right, our wombs are sacred. Our wombs are sacred. Beyond birth, we know that we manifest many things, our experiences, right? Our feelings, our hopes, our dreams, our hurts, our pains, right? Toxicity, many times manifest in the womb, right? What is your lens on the connection between our mental and spiritual states, right, in the womb? And either of you can take this.
Yeah, so I'll start. I'll say that the connection for me is the intentional disconnection, right? Like, we Black women specifically are so far removed from our wombs. We're afraid of them. We don't have the space and capacity to talk about trauma and sexual abuse, and a lot of that is like stemming from like relationships with our mothers, right? And so then we come into these systems and we're just willing to do whatever it takes because we've never been given autonomy over our wombs. And so the connection between our wombs and everything else is like that freedom to be connected, to acknowledge it. Like, how often do you spend time like with it, right? And so when you don't, we have these blockages of like energy. We have these blockages of all kind of things. And so as much as I want to break down like the connection, I really just want to say, like, spend time with your womb so that you can see how the world opens up for you. And when I say that, I mean hold your womb. If you have sexual trauma, like, talk to your body and say, man, like, I'm sorry, I had no control over that. Like, this was hard. If your mother was like, you're not telling the truth about that, like, talking to that inner child and just connecting, because that way you can start to see the connection for yourself. Sometimes we come to these platforms and we're like, what do you think the connection is? But I like to say, like, what is the connection for you? How does the connection feel when you connect to your womb? Because for me, as someone who has survived sexual assault, I have 5 children whom none of which were planned. You know what I mean? Like, there was a lot of remorse that I held, and I was like, damn, like, I never even got to choose this, right? But I got to take ownership of it and say, hey, there was a lot of things that happened to my body, to my womb, that I just never gave permission to. And it is my responsibility to take my power back. I can't be mad at anybody. I have to heal that for myself, because in that, it allows a path to open. And in that, like, I was able to step into my call as a midwife, as, somebody who helps people through womanhood, period, and have real life conversation with no fucking shame, right? With no shame, because the things that happen, like, they're not your fault. And so why carry shame about something that you have no control over? So the connection to womb and manifesting in your heart and love and everything, it only can start when you actually have a connection to your womb and you're not afraid to tap into the beautiful things and the harmful things and the hurtful things that it has experienced.
That's good, sis. That's good. That is so good. Because it makes me reflect on my relationship with my wounds and the things I don't ever talk about, the things I have never uttered until right now. When you said, mom saying, I don't believe you're telling the truth and things like that, right? Like, it made me think about when I was a little girl growing up in Gadsden, right? And my grandmother who was raising me would say stuff like, at 5, you fast. Why you walking like that in that store having a men looking? I'm 5, or calling me heifer instead of my name, for long, you grow up with that, right? And as an adult, I didn't even want to process why I couldn't look at kids, why I didn't want to be connected to kids, but there's just fear in myself, like without experiencing the right kind of love, how can I know that I'm going to connect in the same way? And I would never want to do to anybody what was done to me, so that's so healing, sis. Like you're giving me vocabulary from my experiences today, love that. And I think a natural, progression to this is, really thinking about and talking about the ways that Black women can find safety in this space, right? Because it's not a story of doom and gloom. It's not. It's a story of agency, right? And choosing. So, Candace, can you expound on, the different things that you would advise us to do today actively, to make sure that we are safe?
I would make sure my mic is on. So for us to feel safe in healthcare, I always urge people to interview your doctors. You have the right to hire and fire. So ask questions. What are your philosophies on care? Do you believe, what are your intervention rates? What are your C-section rates? What are your, your surgery rates for just non-pregnancy related things? Do you believe in alternative treatments for fibroids and PCOS and all the other things? Or do you think birth control is the answer and solution? But aside from asking those questions, it's also believe in the personal experiences of those around you too. So we have social media. You can ask, what was your experience like with this doctor? And I've even seen it myself. The same doctor who cut my baby out of my body. And then there's white women who are like, oh no, she was great to me. You're not me. But for Black women, I'm telling you that you're not safe in her hands. And so you can go experiment if you want to, but also personal experience, it is evidence. So asking those questions though, and really getting to know them. And also so even in that, you can also ask your doctor, if your due date's in December, you need to ask them, do you have a planned vacation? Will you likely induce me because it's more convenient for you? Will you make up a problem later on along the lines, or will you trust my body to do what it does? Or will you be greedy and, rush this birth? So asking those questions, but also doing your research to even know what to ask. I tell all of my clients to read a book called Gentle Mother, Gentle Baby, because that book alone gives you so much knowledge on just what the ultrasound machine should be set to, because history shows they turned up the radiation for Black women and our Black babies. It's so many things that we just don't know. So as far as feeling safe in healthcare, ask questions. And if you don't get the answers, or if you don't understand the answers you're given, don't leave the room until you understand. And also, if it doesn't feel right, like Tiffany mentioned above, it's not right. And you have the right to walk away. I've told doctors before, no matter what I chose. With my gallbladder, they were pressuring me to have surgery. And I told them, the one woman who was so mean to me in the hospital, I said, no matter what I decide, you won't touch my body. And that made me feel so good, because I put that power back in my own hands. The least you can do is make me feel safe. So if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel heard, walk away and find options. And use social media. Again, like I said, we can connect you to, you need a midwife in Houston, you need a midwife in LA. We can find you somebody who can work with you in your circumstances to help you feel safe. Aside from asking those questions, I'm trying to think what else is more, what else we can actually do. What do you think, Tiffany?
Document my chart. Hey,
Yeah.
I have a headache. Oh, it's fine. Document my chart. I asked you to draw these lines and you're telling me it's not important. I tell everybody that, because one example I had of that, a lot of times people say oh, you're just a midwife, right? I'm just a midwife that has saved a lot of lives, a lot of lives. And I had one client who I was like, you have blood clots. She was like, no, I don't. I went to the doctor. I was like, go to the emergency room and have them check. She called me, she was like, they're trying to send me home. I said, tell them to document your chart that they're refusing to give you the test that you need to rule out blood clots. Do you know she had blood clots all throughout her body? They had to do emergency surgery and stent and everything. And I'm like, do you see what dismissing people does? And then instead of them being like, we're so sorry, we're just carrying on like nothing. So if you have something going on and you want to make sure, because they understand liability, you have to talk their language. Okay, I'm telling you that I'm presenting with this, and this. What does it cost you to run these damn tests? Run the test. If they come back negative, fantastic. Now we know for sure. But I'm not going to play with the life of anybody when there's a simple test that I can do to rule it out. If you're not going to give it to me, document my chart that you're refusing me care. And they're going to do it. And so you have to learn how to do that. And if you can't, prepare the people that are supporting you, because in birth and labor is vulnerable, right? You might not have the language, but your baby daddy, your husband, your granny, your mama, they're going to have to learn how to speak up and say, hey, we're concerned about XYZ. She's saying that she's having this presented. She's losing a lot of blood. She's dizzy, whatever the case may be. Test. And if they say no, document my chart that you are refusing me care. That has been the lifesaver for so many people.
And one other important tidbit I'd like to add, especially for people who have survived various forms of abuse, you deserve to feel safe. You don't have to have a doctor's hands all in your body. You can say, no, thank you, because guess what? When it comes to birth, your baby's going to come out whether you know if you're 3 centimeters dilated or 10. When it's time for you to push, your body won't stop you from pushing. Your body is going to do it for you. It's called the fetal ejection reflex. Your baby's going to come out. So you don't need a doctor's hands all inside of your body violating you for you to know when it's time for your baby to come. So no matter, and that's a lot of reasons too why some people don't go to doctors. They don't feel safe. And so just know that your body is yours and you have the right to decline any and everything being offered to you. You don't have to agree just because they say with the I'm gonna check you. No, you're not. And first ask me permission and I'm declining.
So good. And for those who don't know, I live on the continent, right? So February 2021, I came over on a one-way flight and I haven't looked back, right? I've just been hopping countries, etc. I'm in Nairobi, Kenya today. And I never knew that a doctor's experience could be so pleasant. Like, I never knew how unsafe I felt until, I'm walking in these facilities and nobody's rushing me. It's not transactional at all. They are so present. They're intently listening to everything I say I'm experiencing. They're going above and beyond, right, to help me articulate. Like, what level is it? Have you had your blood? Your blood drawn? Like, should we test for XYZ? And like, I'm telling y'all, like, the news, propaganda, etc. They're not going to tell you how affordable healthcare is outside of the United States. They're not going to tell you how great and attentive, right, physicians are outside of the United States. But I can attest, and I'm talking about like literally paying $10 for the best experiences I've ever had in my entire life. Feedback on my blood cell count, so many things. Literally, them sending me home with vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D, etc. Because they're like, yeah, your blood cell count should be higher than this. Let's build your immune system, right? And I had a scratchy throat, like just amazing, right? And so, if you are an entrepreneur that is considering, right, being a digital nomad, note that it does not come at the expense of your health. It does not. It does not. The grass is so much sweeter outside of colonialism, to be very frank, right? Because there are people who give a damn about you, Black woman. You are not a burden. You were not born to experience pain. You don't need to experience pain to grow in strength. That's some bullshit, right? It's a very convenient lie for people who want you to bear the brunt of everything on your back. You should feel good. You should feel ease, etc. So I say everything you ladies have said, and I'm just happy that I can experience this every single day, right? Where I am seen by men and women and they patient with me and they go, but like, I don't I don't have to wonder, right, whether they're being thorough. They sending me home every time with sheets and sheets of my complete health care, no matter why I go in, right? And that's for mental health as well. Amazing psychiatrists and physicians over here. So highly recommend if you want to test it out. So beautiful ladies, we unfortunately have to start drawing this to a close because this is such a healing conversation, real time for me. I know it's a lot for a lot of folks listening as well. But you know, I really want to have you all leave the listeners with something very important, right? I'd love for you to speak to the little girls inside of us. And I'm saying us because I want you to speak to the little girl inside of me as well. Knowing what you know today, right? And what you've seen on this journey, right? What would you say to the little girls inside of us listening? Tiffany, we can start with you.
What I tell the little girl inside of me is that nobody could protect you when you were younger, but it's your duty to do it for your fucking self now. And that is something that heals so much in me because I always was looking like, why does anybody like make this stop? Like, why does anybody make this stop? But it's like, now it's your job. And now you can't look to the left or the right. Like, it's your job to prioritize yourself. It's your job to keep yourself safe. It's your job to make sure that people respect your boundaries. It's your job to make sure that you're listening to that intuition. Like, when you silence that, you kill yourself. Start listening to your intuition. If you're driving down the street and it's like, don't go that way. Don't go that way. Listen. And you'll see your path just begin to open up. But what I tell the little girls, I got you, mama. I got you now.
Ashe. Candace?
I'd like to leave us with these closing words is that you can do hard things. As a little girl, sometimes I shied away from doing things that made me scared. And now every day I'm afraid and I get to face it. Not only I can acknowledge and accept where I am and how I feel, my feelings are real, but I get to do all things. I'm literally living my dream. And as a little girl, just playing with my Barbies, I had a little pregnant Barbie where the little baby fat into her belly. And I spent over $100 to buy one recently. Last year, I bought myself that same doll I had when I was a little girl. And it's that you can do hard things and you can do everything you want to do. And working with Tiffany, for all the mamas out there who are still finding their way to where they're headed, you can do everything with your baby by your side. I get to bring my baby to work with me shamelessly. And it's an experience of a lifetime. I couldn't imagine leaving her, my VBAC baby, who I worked so hard to bring here. And I get to bring her with me. And, you know, I'm pretty sure people thought, oh, she had a baby in the middle of her apprenticeship. It's going to take her extra years to finish. And it's not. You can do everything you want to do as long as your heart is in it and your intentions are pure and it's your true desires. You can do it. You can do hard things, little girl. That's what I tell myself.
Woo!
Okay, so we are
crying. We are crying. This is important for every single person listening. Why? Because you are the Tiffany in people's lives. It is your responsibility today to create the culture, right, that you've been waiting for, right, that your sisters have been waiting for. You get to decide, right? I know for me, anytime any of my employees have menstrual cycles, you don't got to work, push the meeting. I don't care if it's with me. Push the deadline. The roof not gonna burn because you need 7 days off, right? I've never seen that done. I've never heard it talked about, but why not, right? Big founder energy up in here all week, every single day, every single second, and here on out. Big founder energy. It is because you said so. Whatever rule needs to be, that needs to be the rule, and you double down on that thing and watch how many lives you change. We talk about generational wealth. We passing down emotional intelligence to our babies. We passing down vocabulary to our babies. We passing down the ability to know what consent is, right? And demand it to our babies. That's bigger than currency and that shit they gave us. right? Humanity is what we have to learn to value. And that first starts with loving ourselves. So I honor you, Tiffany. I honor you, Candace. And y'all are going to change the world. I literally mean the world. You are thought leaders today. Okay, so don't slow down. Y'all ain't alone. Ain't nobody listening to this alone. Don't do it by yourself. If you're doing it all, you're doing it wrong. Pull up. Say what you need. Period.
And I'm proud of you. And I'm always, when I'm up, we up. And I feel like that's what sisterhood is. We need to stop looking at each other like competition and look at each other as partners. And you my partner, and I got you.
Ashe. So ladies, just cause we all curious. I'm speaking for everybody listening. What's next? What's next for you, Tiffany, in the world? What's next for you, Candace?
What's next for us? We're hoping to be able to fundraise a whole lot of money so we can have a Black-owned birth center in Columbia. So we're looking at ways to find fiduciaries so that we can find grant writers that want to gift that to us, because let's be real, we need money. So that's our goal. We want to be able to have that. You know, some people would rather not give birth in their home, and we want to have options for those people as well. So that's something that we are calling forth. We don't know how we're gonna make it happen, but that is on both of our hearts, to open up a birth center in South Carolina.
Super dope. Anything you want to add, Candace?
Exactly what Tiffany said. And the big birth center is, you know, that's the big thing that we're working on, but we're also providing Black-owned childbirth education. We're creating a Black doula network. We want Black lactation consultants everywhere. We have these skills and we're teaching it because we want other Black women to teach it. Like I said earlier, we're about to multiply before their eyes. Everything they thought they were holding us back from, we're taking it. And so our Black Birth Center, it's coming. It's coming. More Black midwives are coming. I'm less than a year out from being a licensed Black midwife, and we are committed to training more Black midwives.
I love it. Congratulations on all of that. Please tell folks how they can follow you, right, and stay in touch so that they can support when you're ready to launch your campaign.
I am on all social media handles as Candace Maria Drew, all together. My Drew is DRU, Candace Maria Drew, and I'm sure you'll see it in the captions.
Yes, and so you can find me on Instagram at De La Flor Midwifery. That is all my midwifery stuff. If you want to find us on Facebook, it's facebook.com/De La Flor Midwifery. And I'm sure that because it's in Spanish, I'm sure that we'll have it listed so that you can actually know how to spell De La Flor.
Dope. Yeah, we'll help them out. All right. This was amazing. I honor you both. I thank you for pouring into us and giving us the healing that we need today. Y'all keep it locked. There is so much more coming. Thank you for sharing space. Love and light.
Thank you.
Woo! Tiffany and Candace are absolutely phenomenal. They've been answering questions in the Q&A bar. They've been getting flowers and praises and shades in the chat. And big kudos to every single person who is here right now this very second. Some of y'all are 7 sessions in. It has been a day. We've been crying. We've been reflecting. We've been tapping into a little more and more that little girl on the inside. Okay. And so kudos to you. I honor you. There's only 1 session left, and that's it. Okay. There's only 1 session left, and that is a live journaling wind down with Neff, my girl Neff. She's super duper fire. So I'm so happy she's doing this. This is on transgenerational trauma. Okay. So I ask you right now, because we're starting that in less than 4 minutes, to get your notepad. There are no more sessions after this, okay? You can feel free to do what you want to do after this, but get your notepad. And this is real time. She will be able to read your comments. She's gonna do what she wants to do, okay? I've already told her that if she wants to ask me some questions real time, I have no idea what she's gonna say. I'm happy to answer live, right, and literally be the example of what this experience is, and fully lean into it. I have no idea what's going to come, but I know it's going to be edifying. So definitely grab your notepads. Okay. Thank you, Raven. Raven is my production assistant, holding it down, y'all. Raven Walker in the chat. She's keeping things running with me back here. Shout out to Sylvia for all of the hard work around this. That's my executive assistant. She's doing a whole bunch of things, y'all, especially on the social media. And then again, kudos to y'all. Before we go over to the journal wind down session, grab your notebook and your pens. I already know I'm about to be crying. Maybe not enough. I can cry though. It's okay, sis. I trust you. I want to announce what's going on the leaderboard, okay? Because there will be 15 winners at the end of this week, 15 winners at the end of this week. And there have been some ladies really, really killing it. Let me tell y'all something. Tiffany Brown, listen. She is really holding it down, okay? She has 5,100 points right now, okay? Tiffany has been busy, okay? Shouts out to you. Number 2, we have Anika Jones. Number 3, okay, Kaya Blackstone, we see you. She's out there in Europe. Erica Wade is number 4. Melissa McDaniel Grisham is number 5. Chrissy King, what up, Chrissy, is number 6. Sharon been multitasking, picking up the kids, getting the baby ready. She's in number 7, super dope. Lenore, who was number 1, no shade, Lenore, but I told you, underdogs really be coming up, and it's still early. It's anybody's game. Lenore's number 8. Anika Leonard, what's up, Anika, is number 9. Number 10 is Erin, who will be a digital nomad. I'm claiming that for you. I saw it in the chat, sis. You can definitely do it. I highly recommend. I've been a digital nomad for 2 years and have built Blaze at the same time. Nicole Player, she is number 11. Ayana Pitts is number 12. Vicky, okay, I see you, Vicky. Vicky pulls up heavily on Mondays for our virtual co-working sessions. I highly recommend. Y'all come on in there. She's number 13. 14 is Winnie Quick. What's up, Winnie? And 15 is Ann. Okay. Now, it's a lot of people on the leaderboard. We have 100 showing right now. Those are the top 15. Okay. But yeah, anybody's game. Quick reminder, you can get points by being active, updating your profile, putting reactions on the screen, writing in the chat, going inside of booths. Okay. We're about to go over to the journal wind down session. I just wanted to shout out the leaderboard real quick. And I also say, right, just in case folks have to do things, I know it's about to be 5 o'clock on the East Coast, okay, of the United States. This is your house, okay? Do not be shy. Use the feed, right, which is shown at the top right, even outside of sessions, to say, meet me at table number, blah, blah, blah. Y'all can meet up at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 13. Okay, I've been over here too long. 1 o'clock, right? Even if right, it's during the day for the DJ set, right? Some people wanted to meet at 1 o'clock, not 1300. During the DJ set today, you can do that, okay? I think that's all the housekeeping I have. I'm gonna go over and I'll be on stage with Neff. We're about to do the journal wind down. The topic is today transgenerational trauma. I'll see y'all on the other side. Peace. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey.
All right, Neff. So it's your world. I have my paper and my pen. My pen. Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna be quiet and let you run your show. You just let me know what you need, sis, and I'm here.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Hey, everyone's. It has been an impactful day. I wouldn't have expected anything less if it has Casey's name on it. Casey, you know, I tell you all the time, I'm going to give you your flowers every chance I can. So I am like in awe of you being miles away from us, but you're still so consistent and pouring into us and engaging with us. And that's just a true testament of that you love us. So hopefully we can, you feel the love that we have for you, and the gratitude that we have for you just creating this for us. You will always and forever be one of my favorites, always. So, yeah.
I gotta give you praise. I appreciate y'all. I do. And I appreciate all the emails and text messages I got prepping for this day. Y'all some riders. But y'all, Neff is off the chain. And she's for real OG. Okay? Neff graced the stage as a speaker in our Winter 2021 Summit, the first one we ever did. I mean, taught me about compassion fatigue. I didn't even know you could be fatigued from compassion, but it made sense, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The math was mathing. She closed us out right before I did my closer with when the village shows up, baby. When the village shows up, and I'm gonna say you manifested a whole lot of stuff in Blaze, sis. She is back. She is back right now for this, but her partnership continued to grow. She's literally a Table and Tribe, our app on Android and Apple. She's a Table and Tribe community ambassador. She legit shows up. She taps people to be accountability partners with them. She responds to people. She supports their goals for the month. You a rider, sis, and so I appreciate you very, very, very deeply. I appreciate you so deeply. And I look forward to continue partnership with you. So thank you. All right, now go ahead
Okay.
and tell people
All
who
right.
you are now, because you don't skip over who you are. All right, I'm on mute.
Okay.
Tell me what you need.
All right. So, I am Nefertiti McGriff. I am a certified life coach, a pre-licensed mental health counselor, certified trauma professional. I am the founder of Transcendent Living. And what we do, we offer clinical and coaching services, but we specialize. So we address anxiety, grief, depression, emotional trauma, but two very specific things that we address or specialize in is those women, adult daughters who are contending with a mother wound. And so what a mother wound is, having that very toxic or complicated, just a strange relationship with your mother. And it's starting to be talked about a little bit more, but we're not really honest about those kinds of things. We're really not honest about the way that we feel when we see our mother's name come across our phone and we're deciding, should I answer this? Do I have the energy? Can I give her what she needs right now? Am I in a place to even deal with this? You know, we don't talk about how it is that we want a hug from our mothers, but it's so awkward because she's not used to being affectionate, but we're affectionate, but we get told that we're being sensitive or that we're soft. We don't talk about these kinds of things. We don't talk about how we're holding that resentment for mama not protecting us when we needed her the most. And so with that, every Monday, there is from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, there is a Release What Mama Did support group. You can go to my booth. You'll see how you can register for that. In there, we talk about any and everything. Now, I do want you to realize that it's not something like, yeah, we're going to talk our crap, of course, because that's part of the healing process. However, the release part is the most important piece of it. So you speak your truth. You speak what it is. However, this work is about you. It's not about mama, because mama did it, and there's no changing that. However, it is about you, how you're showing up for yourself, how you're showing up in your job, you know, your own job, the job that has your name attached to it, how you relate to people, you know, all those kinds of things. That mother wound runs deep, and it can be passed down through transgenerational trauma. So past that, the second thing that we specialize in is victims or survivors of domestic violence. Just recently, I was featured on Fatal Attraction on TV One. It was regarding the case of Makiva Jenkins. Thanks, Casey. And unfortunately, her relationship ended in a demise where her husband thought he was still the beneficiary of a $500,000 insurance policy. And so giving, you know, tips about how you can see those things coming from afar, but also helping women to have a safe space. You know, even if you're still in that relationship, there's no judgment. I've been there. I know what it feels like to have a gun pointed to my head saying, if you leave, you leave in this way, not out that door, but by the bullet in your brain. I know what it feels like to be drugged down asphalt, to have rocks thrown at the back of my head. I know what that feels like. I know how it feels like to still not feel safe after leaving that relationship. But I also know that 1 in 3 women who choose to go back to their abuser almost end up gone. We don't see them anymore. So those two very special things, we make sure that we focus on them. We make sure that we give the women who come to us for that support the space to speak their truths, to recreate their own atmosphere of safety, to, you know, and we honor every single thing of that. So if you are sorry, I'm looking at this request, I'm going to accept it. So that is what Transcendent Living does. We make sure that you are in a space to live freely, fully, and fearlessly. Those are our hopes for you. And so now that you know what it is that Transcendent Living can support you with, let's talk about some of this transgenerational trauma. So it can be, sometimes it is identified as just generational. Sometimes it's defined as intergenerational. But what it really is, it's the trauma that's passed down through generations. It's something, like I said before, the mother wound that can be passed down from, because maybe mama's treating you because that's how big mama treated her. And Casey, when you said in that panel discussion, being called heifer and not by your real name, that is trauma. That's trauma being passed down. No, call me by my name. We're not doing that. I'm not a cow. Don't do that. You know, but when you're at that age, you don't know. You just know it hurts. You just know it hurts. So trauma is passed through our behaviors or family customs, like name calling, and it is induced, or it can be induced, through in utero exposure. So what does that really mean? Well, the cortisol levels, the different hormonal changes that mom may be experiencing while she is pregnant with baby. And those things lead to what we call epigenetic changes. So those are potential inherited changes in the genome that can be induced by environmental events. So this thing is real. It's not something that we just made up. Hypertension, you know, all those kinds of things. And in the Black community, we are extremely vulnerable to that because we have to deal with not only racism, because the systems that were built were not built for us to thrive in. So all day we've been talking about how differently we are treated in the medical field. And it's real. It's very real. I went to a male white doctor and I told him something did not feel right with my body. And he told me, "You're just overreacting." Overreacted about what, sir? And so I went to a Black woman and she confirmed, you know, a diagnosis that I really needed to get on quickly, very quickly. So, you know, the trauma that I inherited from that, not just from him, but from my mother, holding on to what her mother did and what her mother did, you know, and all I get is a scripture. I don't need a scripture at this time. Mama, I need you to mother me. I need you to hold me. I need you to hug me. But that didn't happen. What I had to do was set that boundary. Mom, I understand this is how you're dealing with it, but this doesn't help me. So please don't do this. It took her about a good 5 minutes to understand where I was coming from, but I stood firm on that. This is not what I need. This is probably helping you not be uncomfortable, but this is uncomfortable for me. So back to the generational trauma and the systems not being built for us to thrive, but just to give us a glimmer of hope, but still keep us in that turmoil. We also have sexual assault that's transgenerational, incest, domestic violence. All of this results in some kind of trauma. So during the sessions, I took some notes that I think are worth mentioning from, to kind of drive this home. So, Casey, you started off with, we see Chase Banks, and we see Wachovia, and we see all these different array, like this huge selection of banks, and no one bats an eye. But here we are. I have to be the only one in this market. If another person's over there, then I have to do it better than them, or I can't do it because there's somebody else and somebody else is already doing it. But that's a good thing that somebody else is doing it, because that means it's needed. But that transgenerational trauma has us operating in the spirit of competition. And that kind of stems from slavery. I'm not gonna lie to you. They had to pit us against each other. House slaves, field slaves. There's that right there. The fairer your skin, the more pleasant you were treated. But we're not here to talk about that right now. So that kind of thinking really push us into a thought of scarcity. Oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? No, as Casey has been saying all day, this is the land of plenty, honey. There is plenty of opportunity for us, plenty, but because we grow up on these customs and these values that, you have to be better than the next person. What if you are equally the same? What happens? We're just a larger force. That's all. That's it. And then kind of like going back to last year, you have someone that you can bake bread with. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, we talked about the resiliency in the independence, and this was from Brittany. She talked about that, and code switching and identity shift. Sometimes the resiliency that we hold on to is what breaks us. Resiliency, yes, it is about adapting to what is better, but some people take it as, I gotta tie my cape a little bit tighter. Sis, if you tie it too tight, you're gonna choke. Don't do that. So think about it this way. You got on a pair of cute high heels, but them things hurting your feet. And you tippy toeing and you like, but I know I look good. And so whether you take them off or not, when you do finally get to take them off, your feet are howling like dogs. Ow! So from that, you're going to learn, okay, maybe I need to either, one, wear these to an event where I'm sitting most of the time. I can bring a pair of shoes, an extra pair of flats with me. Or 3, I just don't wear them at all. That is your resilience, right? That's resiliency. That's your ability to be able to understand, how can I manage through this? So next time, it's not going to kick my butt so hard. It's not about going through something, pushing through no matter what. It's not about that. And I think a lot of people just misunderstand that term resiliency. That independence, yeah, we could be independent, but listen, as Brittany said, no, I don't want to be all that. I didn't ask for this. I don't want to be all that. So Candace talked about health history. It's okay to not be okay. We learned, if you really think about it, most of us learned about our deficiencies by default. Casey, you said the only time you got labs ran was outside of the US. I'm sure that was by default. You were experiencing something, and so most of us go through life not understanding what's going on. And guess what? That in itself is a family custom that has breeded transgenerational trauma, because we don't know. All we heard about was sugar and gout. That's all we heard about. How do we get that? I don't want that. That sounds bad. So we don't talk. They didn't tell us, okay, don't eat this, don't drink this, move it. They didn't know. And if they did know, because you do have certain elders that they do gatekeep, because they feel like, oh, if I tell this, then I'm gonna feel shamed. I'm going to feel too vulnerable. And feeling too vulnerable, that can lead into other things. Okay, so when we don't have our elders telling us, hey, I have history of, I'm just going to pick diabetes, and so when we go to the doctor and they ask you for that family chart, and you say no for mom, dad, whoever, and they're like, okay, well, you got it from somewhere. You inherit it. And then when you go back and you talk to your folks, and I've experienced it with my mom. Hey, mom, so the doctor said, and this is a true story, the doctor said she did a wellness check on me, and she said that there is heart disease in my family. I am a candidate if I don't continue to do the things that I need to do. And she's like, I don't know. I don't know. Ask my dad. He's like, no. Okay, so either the test lied to me, or y'all just don't know. I kid you not, 3 years later, my mother had to have a triple bypass surgery. She had artery coronary disease, or however you say it. And so now in my head, I'm thinking, okay, here it is. But this is that trauma that keeps us in the dark. But now, unfortunately, that happened. But now I know, okay, that's what that test meant. So now I know what I need to do. So that in itself is a trauma. I was traumatized by it. She's traumatized by it. My siblings are traumatized by it. And so now everybody, instead of being proactive, now we're all reactive. So we also talked about, let's see. No, that was it. So with those notes, I feel like everything is meant to be. Whatever was said today was meant to be. And I think it fits so perfectly in what we're going to do. And so when we talk about trauma, and I really want you to understand how it impacts your brain, the senses. So sense memories play a huge role in trauma. Like, there was a comment earlier in the chat where it says the body keeps score. And that's a great book, by the way. And it does. That's very true. It's pre-verbal trauma, when the senses remember the trauma, but someone doesn't have a verbal memory of it. We live that every single day because it's encoded and it's engraved in the brain. So think about this. As children, we don't have an existing framework that helps us interpret trauma. The first thing we learn about the world, boundaries, coping, communicating, everything is through our families. And then everything else we learn about the world is through experience. And we carry all of this with us. And then you wonder why we're not able to problem solve. So now that I have given you this rundown of what transgenerational trauma could look like for you, now's the time to get your pens and your paper. And my first question to you, what do you feel about today's summit and why? What do you feel about today's summit and why?
And Neff, while they're writing, right,
Mhm.
and ladies, do right. Do right. Be raw, be real. Whew. I want to tell you what comes up for me.
Please.
Okay.
Mhm.
June, you write this on your own journal. Like this is journaling for you to keep and process. You write this in your own journal, and if y'all want to, Neff gonna do what she do, right? But definitely in your own, and you can share in the chat if you want to. My first reaction that comes up is what was sparked by what you talked about in your notes, and I did not expect it, and I think because I was very unguarded. Stuff came up that I would have normally pushed down. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel about today's summit and why? Oh Lord. So two things came up. One is very controversial. But one is very hidden and I never talk about it. And I'm going to push myself to talk about the hidden thing because it's easy for me to talk about controversial things. Actually, like I'm very guarded when I do that, right? You talked about understanding our family history, right? And like how important it is when we show up to advocate for ourselves or to get insights about ourselves, etc. And Neff, my mom's side of the family, my mom was murdered when I was 1. But I've heard stories of her, right? And I've heard stories of how she tried to commit suicide a couple of times in college before I was born, right? And my grandmother is still living, and I've heard stories of her. I've heard stories of how unstable she was when she was raising my mom and her 2 siblings, and how the burden fell on my mom as a 5-year-old girl and an 8-year-old girl, and she had to grow up really, really fast, but it led to her being depressed older, right? And I've heard stories of my grandmother's uncles and aunties who struggle with mental illness. And how somebody has schizophrenia, somebody else has bipolar disorder, etc. And Neff, and these are the things I don't say when I go to the doctor's office, but me now after experiencing domestic violence, I have so much PTSD that I'm constantly fearful that I'm going to be like that side of my family. And I have shame around it, not shame around struggling with depression, anxiety, all of these things, but I fear that something has taken me over the edge, or something that's going to take me so far over the edge that I am going to be like my grandmother. You know what I'm saying? That I'm going to be like my, and I don't talk about it. So I don't process this at all. Now I need to. Like now I realize I have to feel that. Yeah, Keisha just said, I have to, right? And I have to come even when I get angry, Neff, like I'm very self-conscious because I'm like, am I being crazy? Like, am I acting crazy? Am I being irate? Like, because I'm so afraid of being like my grandma was when she was raising my mother, or snap, I don't know, but and I need to keep processing this, right? But that comes up for me, and I realize it's something I should bring it up in therapy. I'm doing therapy all the time anyway. Like, I should talk to my partner about it and say, hey, I'm so when I get mad in here because I don't know if you think I'm crazy. Like my mama thought her mama, So thank you, sis, for that. And the second thing, and I'm gonna be quiet. The second thing that came up for me was easier for me to talk about, right? When you talked about, this story around resiliency and vulnerability that Brittany Raji shared earlier, and you said sometimes the resiliency we hold onto breaks us, right? I thought about how, even in my family, right? But it was always, but definitely even outside, like when I hear women talking in general, it is like, I know I'm going through this trial to make me stronger, right? Like
Mm,
I know the Lord put me through this because He want to teach me a lesson.
mm,
Oh, girl, it
mm-hmm.
just grinds my gear because I'm like, why do you think that's the best kind of love? You know, like
Right,
why
right,
do you think pain is love? Like, why do you think you have to be punished to learn
right.
something? Why can't pleasure be your birthright? Like, why can't you know? So
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm.
came up for me when you said that because it's still so common and it's like, no, like growth doesn't have to, like God don't have to teach you something by skinning your knees, dog.
No,
Like
no.
that's it.
Humans do that, not God. If we really truly believe that God is a God of love, why do we constantly give him personify him as a human? We when we feel like God is disappointed in us, we automatically revert him back to the person, the physical person that we don't want to face when we think they're disappointed with us. We personify him too much as a human, and that's what humans do when you don't do what you're supposed to do. We tough love. We, so that's trauma. That's
That's
trauma.
trauma.
Yeah.
That's trauma. Raven says she wants to share. It's up to you, Neff. Do you want to allow other people to share too, or do you want to go to the next?
We're gonna keep that in queue because I wanna. So we'll let her, when we do it, we'll let her do that one,
Go
and
first.
then
Okay.
if anybody want to share for the next ones, so we'll do like one a piece.
Okay.
Okay.
Beautiful. So Raven's up for that one. All right.
All right. What made you feel seen today? What made you feel seen today? Thanks, Jackie. um, the next one is, what made you feel uneasy and why? What made you feel uneasy and why?
And Neff, I got to tell you, what made me feel seen today was you. You always do this every summit in a different way, but you saying, Kate, you inbox me saying, Casey, make sure you staying hydrated. Make sure you're drinking your water.
I gotta make sure you're good, baby. Okay, so far we have, what do you feel about today's summit and why? What made you feel seen? What made you feel uneasy and why? What trauma do you believe that you have passed on or exposed to your children, the generation under you, or to your partner or spouse? What trauma do you believe that you have passed down or exposed to your children, the generation under you, or to your partner? Okay. Is there anything that you grieve from your childhood? Is there anything that you grieve from your childhood? Is there anything that you grieve from your childhood? And the follow-up to that is, have you made peace with that? Is there anything that you grieve from your childhood? And the follow-up is, have you made peace with that? And so if you haven't made peace with that, we can have a little process session. But if you feel like this is something that you know that is a barrier to your success, a barrier in some kind of functioning in your life, I strongly suggest that you add either a life coach or therapist to your support network. If you've made peace with that, I congratulate you on that, because I know it's not easy. What is one thing that you have noticed that you inherited from transgenerational trauma? What is one thing that you've noticed that you have inherited from transgenerational trauma? And this can be something that has attacked your immune system. It can be the way that you communicate. It could be customs that you have realized that you've kept. It could be anything that has kind of caused some kind of imbalance in your life. The question again is, what is one thing that you've noticed that you have inherited from transgenerational trauma?
You good.
And the follow-up to that is, what ways can you put that to rest? What ways can you put that to rest? And so if you are struggling with deciding on what ways to put this to rest, that means you either need to let this be for now, and when you have time, go home, run some water, make sure it's cold, let your hand sit underneath that water, that running water, for a couple of seconds to a minute, breathe, and then change it to warm and see, experience the change in that temperature, but still let it run from your wrists down to your fingertips. Help regulate yourself that way. But you need to come back to, at some point today, what ways can you put that thing that you inherited to rest? Because if this is no longer my burden, then that needs to be no longer your burden. Lastly, are you able to honor yourself without minimizing your experiences? Are you able to honor yourself without minimizing your experience? And so what that could look like, because we minimize our experience, oh, it was nothing. Yeah, it was something. Because it's from you. It was a big deal. Well, yeah, I had this experience, but who doesn't? Doesn't matter about who doesn't. You had it. So are you able to honor yourself without minimizing your experiences? And so all these things, I hope that you're able to understand that transgenerational trauma is something that you inherited, but it is no longer your burden. No longer your burden. Remember one key thing. You are responsible to people, but you're not responsible for them. Unless you have children, that's different. But grown adults, no matter the title, whether it's mom, auntie, husband, sister, adult daughter, you are responsible to, not for. So being responsible to them, meaning getting the information out, seeking the information, being assertive and saying, hey, this doesn't feel good. I don't like when you do this. I don't like when this happens. Or being assertive and asking for that information or researching it. Like, forget her name, but she said, if you're not gonna give me the answer, if you're not gonna help me find a way, I'm gonna make a way myself.
The sequel, yeah.
Yes. So transgenerational trauma, it can stop with you. It can, and it will, because we're here. We know better and we're doing better. No longer our burden. Okay. So you said, what was the young lady's name who wanted to answer?
Raven.
Yes. Okay. We're ready.
Raven, feel free to hit the hand button and come to the stage. Well, honestly, sis, you in the booth, so let me just unhide you. Okay, there you go.
Hey.
Hi. Oh, hey, sugar.
The last Blaze retreat, I was pregnant. But this was really, really good. I did not write, but I typed them in my phone. And I was like, wow, this is making me teary. I haven't really cried all day. Like, this is making me teary. Go back. Today's summit made me feel very grounded. And it solidified a lot that I already knew, but I'm the type of person that I need extra confirmation, like extra, I need somebody else to validate it before I believe it. And I know that is rooted in my childhood trauma of like not being believed and of like being talked to in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 3 kids, and I find myself a lot of times at battles with my daughter because her energy is very big. Like she's loud, she's busy, but when I'm in the process of correcting her, I struggle a lot with not yelling at her and not like being like, oh my gosh, you're getting on my nerves and stuff like that, because that stuff deeply affected me as a child. A little of my background, I was born to a mother who's on drugs. I was adopted like an in-family adoption. So I wasn't even raised with my biological mom. I was raised with an aunt who I grew up calling mom. But she would never praise my things that I did right. But if I did something wrong, it was just the end of the world. Like, you know, and it could be something small, like I waste something on my shirt and now you messy, you know, I can't do nothing with you, you know, nobody ever like, and I was always a messy child, like, so nobody was ever gonna love me. I was gonna never be able to find a husband because I was messy. And that really, and I can't think of no other word, but that fucked me up. And I did not realize it until I became an adult and really until I became a mom, because I'm like, I cannot even, like, I perform for love. Like, I just would find myself being like extra giving. I find myself questioning my relationships, even with Casey, for example. Like, I have to tell myself, like, Casey loves me, like, Casey like me, like, because if I don't have that validation, I'm telling myself like nobody loved me, nobody liked me, because I just constantly kept hearing how bad I was, but nothing was ever praised good. And even now, as an adult, when stuff is praised good, it's hard for me to receive it for myself. It's hard for me to be like, oh, I'm smart. And I know I'm smart, but it's still like, it just makes me hide and not want to, you know, share to the world. But one thing that I want to no longer be my burden is, a few years ago, I was raped by a family friend, and a lot of my family took the rapist side. And it wasn't like, oh, we believe him, but it was in ways of how they spoke to me, like, oh, I see why people don't believe you, or why would you do that? It just made me feel so bad. Like, it made me feel so horrible. And I really wanted to die. But I was already a mama too. So I stuck it out, but I cannot even remember the days of like caring for them because I had so much trauma. Like, when I think back to the time, I'm like, I don't even remember like what we ate or what we did. Like, it's like that part of my life is really blank. And I beat myself up now in the present as a mom because I just know I was so angry. I was just so mean and so cold to them because I just stopped talking to my family, so I didn't have no like physical support anymore. I cut off my support because I'm just like, I can't allow y'all to make me feel like the rape was my fault. And I'm like, and to be honest, y'all never really made me feel loved. Like, so that was just it for me. I was angry. Like, I'm like, oh, this will do it. It's like my inner child just came to the light. Like, that just brought Little Raven forward. Like, I'm like, oh shit, this remind me of how I felt when I was little. Like, nobody believed me. You know, I was always doing too much. I'm getting blamed for something that's not even my fault. Nobody's protecting me. And it was like, my spirit was like, you know, just protect yourself. And it was a long, long journey. And then, you know, God sent people in my life now who loved me and wrapped me and care for me to get back. But I really want to leave my shame. I want to release that burden of feeling like shameful of things that was not my fault. Like, Raven, it was not your fault you was a crack baby. It was not your fault that you was yelled and screamed at, because I do understand that my aunt, who I call my mom, didn't have the tools to raise me, and that her snapping and that was trauma passed to her, being one of 17, being raised in Jim Crow era, all that type of stuff. But I want to leave the shame I feel of like, oh, during those days you was a bad mom, and just replace, because my kids are still young and I'm a really great mom, and just replace it with like, Raven, you did not have the support then, so you couldn't do your best, but you're doing your best now. And just keep going, because sometimes I just get in this cycle of shame of feeling like I'm just bad, and I'm really I just want to leave that in today and not take that forward, so I can continue to be a great mom to my kids, and a great partner to my partner, a great sister to my friends, because in my core of core, I know that I am that. But it's hard for me to believe that sometimes, and it just really makes me, I can't think of another word but shameful. Like, you just want to hide. You don't want nobody to bother you, check on you, because you don't want to be honest. So I don't know if I answered like all the questions in one thing, but that was a release, and I'm just thankful that you brought forth these questions of death to help me dig to that place especially because I'm about to fly here in a few weeks to see her grandkids for the holidays. And even that, right? Like she'd be like, I can't wait to spend time with them. And I'm like, what about me? Like, do you not want to spend time with me? Like, why you only calling, checking on the kids? Like, I'm a person. Like, I am somebody. If it's not for me, they wouldn't even be getting raised. And it just makes me feel so bad. But I want to release, like, just be like, girl, that's just how that lady is. And like, if you're gonna deal with her in this relationship, that's just how she is. I really want to just, release that expectation and just radical acceptance so I can move forward. Cause I feel like that's just, holding me back. I made peace with it, but that was one of the questions. Have you made peace with it? And I said, yes, I have, but I still have this void. And I'm scared that it's never gonna get filled, of having the parent that I desire, having a mom that I truly wanted as a child, somebody a little more soft, a little bit more gentle and receptive and open to let me be who I was instead of trying to mold me and change me. I don't think I'm ever going to get that. And I've had peace with that, but I do wonder if I'm always going to feel a whole. But that's all. I don't want to keep ranting.
Wow, Raven, thank you for that transparency and that vulnerability, because I know that was not easy to just bear all of that in front of all of us. And I truly, truly, truly thank you for that. There's a whole host of things that I would love to dig in with you, but I know we're limited on time. But one of the things that I would like to encourage you to think about is the possible transference of what you experience, and making sure you resist the urge to silence your daughter's big energy. I know you said that you don't want to do that and you're aware of it. Just be mindful. Look at her in a way as though she's a resource for you, a resource in making you feel happy. So when that big energy comes, it's just like, okay, this is probably the part of life that I never got to experience, but I'm going to allow her to experience. And so that in itself, so some people say you can't live vicariously through your children. There's some things that you can. If you see the happiness in your child and you're like, oh, I wish I could do this as a kid, but she's able to do it. Now, boundaries are everything. Okay. And if she's at a stage where she understands boundaries, make sure they're not they're not tight, because at the end of the day, what happens is when we're kids, we're told we could do every and anything. And then as we start to grow up, we're told, simmer down. And those big, wild dreams are crushed. And then we end up in a state where kind of where we are now is like, gosh, man, I feel so limited. I feel this. And so you don't want to pass that on to her. But also the second thing I wanted to kind of touch on is the expectation of your mom. You're right. You probably will never get her to be who it is that you want her to be. And so looking at it from a perspective of, well, she is who she is. And I know sometimes it's not fair, but understanding that if she's open to communication, it could change. A lot of times we place expectations on people and they don't even know we have these expectations. So we're constantly disappointing ourselves because we're like, they should be doing this, but how do they know they need to do it for us? If you've had these conversations with her and she's still not she's still not meeting your needs, then that's something that you will definitely have to process and become more self-confident within yourself. And it was said earlier, I can't pronounce her name. I'm so sorry, Mama. But she became what she didn't have. So that's what that healing process is all about. Healing is not a linear thing. It's not just straight to the moon on a unicorn. It is stages. It's all these things. But if you want to connect with me and we talk further, I will be happy to do that for you. And I again just thank you for laying that burden right here in front of us all to either just appreciate you more, learn you more, and honestly send you virtual hugs. That was very big of you. Thank you for that.
I love Raven to death, y'all. Oh, this girl. Yeah, go ahead now. We'll keep going.
Do you need to say anything else? Do you need to decompress? Do you need to, or is there someone else who needs to decompress?
I'm just grateful for you, Neff. I'm so grateful for you.
You know I love you, Mama. You know I love you.
Love you too. I think these questions were phenomenal, right? And I think as I wrote answers for myself, as I listened to Raven talk, as I read the chat, I realized a lot of these experiences were born out of safety. The yearning for safety, right? Like when Raven sees it in her daughter, she can't help but to try to protect her daughter from the evil she experienced because of her big personality, right? I know that when my grandmother told me at 5, you being fast in front of these men in the store, she in her best wasn't great, right? But she was trying to protect me from things that happened to her. I know that. I know that, when I think about the way transgenerational trauma shows up in my life today, when you ask that question about how does it show up with our partners, how does it show up with our other generations, I thought about my friends, right? My old friends, and I thought about who I was when I came into this relationship, and intimidation was the word I wrote down. My grandmother intimidated me, and for safety, that is what I do, right? I know that if I make you afraid of me, right? If I seem like the big bad wolf, as much as that hurt me, I feel safer, right? So I appreciate you for asking questions in ways that just literally stripped us down to nakedness, right? Where we can see ourselves better first, and then be able to see other people for the humanness that they have. I think it's fire, but I'm gonna be quiet. I'm just grateful. I think we do have a person that wants to come up, Neff.
Okay.
It is Kayla Life, so I'm gonna bring her up if you're ready for her. Good. Okay. I think that's a yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Day. Hello, main characters. I'm a little upset because the storm happened. The devil tried to keep me from here, but God knew I needed to hear this today because this topic has been coming up a lot for me recently about my mom and my relationship with my mom and how I'm dealing with that right now, and recognizing her as a person as opposed to my mom, and what experiences she was going through with me at the age of 24. I'm 30 right now, right? My mom had me at 24. She was getting her master's and she was a single mother, right? She thought that she was going to have this perfect picture kind of life. And then it flipped on its head when she was told by my biological father's mother that he had 3 other kids before her and she had no idea. So that kind of thing right now at 30, I'm imagining myself in her shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And what she could have possibly been experiencing at that moment. I'm like, I can't even fathom having a child right now, period. Right? Like, I'm doing so much right now, and I can't fathom a child such as myself, rambunctious, loud, bigger than life, doesn't care what people tell her, gonna do her own thing anyway. And her life is literally flipping on its head. Right. And so a lot of those experiences that I realize I experienced is because she did the best she could with what she had. And one of the things that I mentioned in the chat was that I just did a reel about this, a YouTube short of, my mom being my greatest superhero, but also my greatest supervillain. Like, recognizing that she wasn't perfect and subsequently meant that I wasn't perfect. And now I'm angry because I'm looking at you as my superhero. and you don't have your shit together. What do you mean? Right? And so I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for the alignment. I'm grateful for us just recognizing that we do have a responsibility to change what we've experienced, and even recognizing that my mother was only trying to be better than her mother. And she was, right? Like, even recognizing what she went through and what she experienced and what her life story looks like. Learning my mom now at the age of 55, right? And she's freshly divorced, it's a new experience for her. She's now experienced what she thought she should have been experiencing at 24. And so I'm experiencing that not just with my mom, but with Crystal. And it's some days it's like, you're all right, you're Crystal today, and that's who we're dealing with. And that's who we're going to talk to. And some days I do have to say, hey, I need my mom today. I need to speak to my mom today. And being okay with having that boundary of like, right now is not a bestie type of situation. I need to talk to my mama because shit is going left and I need some comfort, right? It's okay to reel her in that way. But I recognize that in my own God gift of communication and relationship building, I also have background in mental health and, all of that kind of thing. It's my responsibility only for my impact. Right. So while I'm in these conversations with her, and listening to her intently, and not because I'm trying to figure out when I'm going to get my next word in, but trying to figure out what it is that she's trying to express to me now in this adult age, and how she's trying to even heal herself. Right. She's in therapy. And so there's things that she wants to share with me that she's never opened up to before, things I've never understood. So it's been impactful. It's been interesting, but I also recognize that similar to Raven, I'm never going to have the relationship that I want with my mom, and I think the added piece of that is that I have 2 younger siblings. My mom is like this with my younger sister. I and her are like, like we battle in between. So me recognizing that relationship and trying to figure that out, and then realizing that, whatever relationship I have with my mom is the one that I have, and one relationship my mom has with my sister is the one that she has, and my sister is not to blame for that, because I didn't realize I was holding up so much resentment towards my sister, who was just living life, and I feel bad about it because I am in the middle. I'm in the middle on all sides. I have like 3 sides of my family. I have my mom's side, my biological father's side, and my stepfather's side, right? And so I realized, like, growing up, like, I'm in this space where I felt so isolated. I felt so alone because I'm the only one with a last name like mine. I'm in a room full of people that are family, and I don't feel like family. And I felt like they moved me from my family, and I felt like they weren't caring about what happened to me. And now in my adult age, I'm like, wow, were just doing what they thought was best. They thought it was best for me to move. They thought it was better for me to have a new environment, to move me from what I knew. And they were right in a sense, but they are also wrong. And so that duality that happens with me, and even when I speak about my mom, I said to one of my clients the other day, like, it's a sense of trauma for me and healing for me to say my mom wasn't a bad mom. I don't even know why I have to preface that when I'm speaking about her. It's almost like I'm trying to still protect her. They say that she wasn't horrible, but things were happening to me that weren't okay. And things that I wanted to happen in my own safety, right? In my own mental, things that I needed to have talked to me about as a child, or even now as an adult, that things they still won't talk about. I need that. And if I don't get that, I have to be okay with what that looks like. And I have to forgive myself in the process for even holding that kind of trauma over her, right? And so I appreciate this. I know that whatever was happening in this storm today caused me to just come in at this moment. Shout out to you, Casey. Shout out to everyone that's here. And thank you. Thank you for this space, and thank you for even this topic.
Thank you, Kayla.
Whew. Well, Neff, I appreciate you. This was everything. I knew it would be everything. And just so you all know, Neff is doing a journal wind down session tomorrow, because tomorrow, and it ain't even about motherhood tomorrow. It's not even about healthcare tomorrow. But baby, when I say we're going there, we're going there. Literally no longer my burden. We are hitting all of the dimensions of womanhood, right? Black womanhood. So tomorrow's gonna be a whole nother other thing. Okay. And we're gonna end the day with a journal wind down session called attachment. So definitely, y'all get what y'all need tonight. Hydrate, rest, all of these things that a medical professional could tell you better, but we got more ground to cover. Like Neff mentioned earlier, she does have a booth. Thank you, Nicole. She does have a booth, so if y'all want to kick it with Neff over in the Bob Black Market at her tables, definitely go over there. But there are a whole lot of folk out there waiting for y'all right now. Okay. Vendors, if you can hear the sound of my voice, use that feed now. Whatever y'all doing, whatever y'all giving away, whatever music y'all playing, whatever, use that feed at the top right so that folk can see you no matter where they are, okay? No matter where they are in the summit. If they're in the lounge, they can see you in the feed, okay? Number two, maybe this is number three. Never got me all dizzy over here thinking about my prompts. But number three, maybe, is if you all want to be notified when certain booths go live, go inside of their booth and just hit the notify me on the left side of their booth. Just hit the notify me button and you'll be notified when they're doing a broadcast in their space, okay? And it's the final thing for real. And this is just a new challenge to y'all, because a lot of y'all want to connect and y'all acting scared, okay? I'm going to sound like my girl, who was there earlier? Brittany, my St. Louis shawty. Y'all acting scared, okay? Y'all use the feed too. If you know that you want to talk about such and such at 8 o'clock, drop it in the feed, man. Tell folk to pull up, right? If you want to meet up inside, now they didn't say this, but I'm telling you this. If you don't even want to meet inside a Neff booth at 7:30 because you feel safe in there, tell the people in the feed and y'all meet inside a Neff booth at 7:30, okay? But definitely commune. This is free and open space. We're intentionally allowing y'all to roam as you please, because that is definitely in line with the summit. No longer my burden. We're taking the chains off. Just take up space, man. Just be. That's all I got. I'm in Tanzania in East Africa, so it's 1 a.m. for me, so I won't be in any booths. I'm about to go sleep with my babe. But y'all enjoy, have so much fun. We'll be back here at the top of tomorrow, same time, 4 more days. We know we're near done yet. I love y'all, and I just want to close out by saying, Raven, I love you so much, sis. I love you, 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 sis. I'm so proud of you, not because of anything that you've done, but because you're here. You're here. Like, the lifting of your finger is beautiful to me. The way you see the world is beautiful to me. The way your eyes dance when you laugh is beautiful to me. You are everything. I'm so proud of you because you're here. You're here. You're here. You're here. You won't get there late, sis. Whatever there is, you won't get there late. Don't worry. You'll be right on time every single place that your feet touch, every hug that you encounter in your life. I tell you, it's a lot. I'm gonna tell you again, you've not met all the people in your life who are gonna love you. Okay, so just keep going, mama. All right, y'all. Neff has turned her camera off, so she's headed over to the booth. Y'all definitely go check her out. Okay, I'm going to bed. I'll see y'all in the morning. Love and light. Bye.